Jai Govardhana, Jai Ram, Jai Krishna, Abhaya Charan. Ribol. Nice to be with all of you on such a joyous occasion. I would like to enter into what's really a very esoteric aspect of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which much of Gaudiya Vaishnavism is, if you will, through Gaur Leela. But I want to preface that by a personal anecdote with regard to Giriraj, and then maybe we should think about that a little bit, what it is we're involved in and how we might be looked at by the rest of the world, whether we should be concerned about that or not. So to begin with, just as I was leaving the institution of International Society for Krishna Consciousness with the idea that I could best serve the founder, Om Vishnupadi Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, better under the auspicious guidance of Puja Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. I was on my way from the East Coast to the West Coast, where some devotees had published a couple of books based on Guru Maharaj, Pujapat Maharaj's talks. And on the way, midway through, actually in Toronto, some of us are here from Toronto, of course, Sundar. I see you here. So nice to have you here. I found myself there, and an old acquaintance of mine, some of you may know, his name was Yashodanandan Maharaj, disciple of Prabhupada. He ran into me, or I ran into him, and he said he wanted to come and see me in the evening, and he had a gift for me. And so I was happy to receive him, and he came bearing a cloth, and he opened it up, and there were two Govardhan Shilas, or stones from the Govardhan Hill. And then he said that I showed these to Prabhupada, and I told him that in the Brahmanda Purana, it's mentioned that the stones of Govardhan are worshipable. Now, just to give you some context, this was quite a while, many years earlier and before, for example, the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that my Guru Maharaj translated was published, where you will find out many esoteric truths about Giriraj Govardhan, and the fact therein that the stones of Govardhan are worshipable. Indeed, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself worshipped the stone, and so on and so forth. We'll have to come to that in our as the discourse goes forward. So you can just imagine how Prabhupada was chuckling inside. And he said, from the, Brahmanda Purana is a little bit of an obscure text, if you will, for the Gaudiyas, and Yashodanand was he had a little bit of a penchant for that, right? And so Prabhupada said that, well, if it says so in the scripture, then it must be so, right? Must be worshipable. And then Yashodananda Maharaj said, and he picked up this one, held it, and looked at it, put it down, and then he looked at the other one, and he gave his approval. He said, I'm keeping the one that he picked up, and the one that he looked at, I'm giving to you because I know that you'll take care of. So that's how I began my Govardhan Puja, and I went from there to the West Coast, as I mentioned. When I arrived there, the godbrothers of mine who were assembled, as I came in the door, they were having a conversation about the worship of Govardhan, and how Guru Maharaj, Puja Maharaj had recommended that sannyasis should, if they travel and they want to have a deity, they should would do well to take the Giriraj. He's very convenient in that regard. And Prabhupada used to say that deity worship is Krishna coming in a form that you can handle, and that's like kind of taken to the extreme in terms of Giriraj, at least the stone is small enough. Although some people around Govardhan say you should get one the size of your heart to worship. But that was the conversation. I said, well, I have, Govardhan Shila, and it wasn't very, worship of Govardhan Shila was not very prominent, even in ISKCON, at that time. There were different ideas about it. It's very esoteric, and you shouldn't, get too close to that because you might not be qualified. And there's another end of the spectrum also, where everybody around Govardhan's got one on their shelf, and they have a very intimate relationship with him. After all, he is what we call a Rag Marg deity. So anyway, and they said, but do you have the Gunjamala? Gunja are some like a plant, and the little it grows little beads, I guess, and you can make a necklace out of the beads. Krishna wears them, part of his rustic attire that makes him more beautiful and attractive than the opulent ornamentation we find in Narayan and in Vaikuntha. So I said, no, I don't have the Gunjamala. Mahaprabhu Chaitanya Dev worshipped the Govardhan Shila, and he, at the time of doing so, he garlanded himself with the Gunjamala. He gave these two to Raghunath Das Goswami with some instructions. We'll have to come to that. But anyway, they gifted me the Gunjamala. And then when I went to see Guru Maharaj, he told me, you should worship Govardhan. I was one step ahead there. So an anecdote, right? And I have that stone that Shila I worship in most every day. If not, Guru Nishtu, some of you know he's a substitute pujari there. So it's a nice story, and at the same time, we're modern contemporary people living in the Western world, and the history of the Western world, beginning really in about the 5th century in Greece, is one that very much involves divorcing humanity from the sin, the great sin and the great idiocy. From a religious point of view, sin is Western thinking, and largely Christian, although it began with the Greeks, the sin of anthropomorphism. So you're not going to get far in academia if you have a penchant for anthropomorphism, for example. At least that's been the norm. Anthropomorphism, of course, means that humans project their human sensibilities, which are largely their emotional reality, onto nature, onto the plants, onto the animals, onto the rivers, mountains. Sound familiar? Hmm? That's anthropomorphism. And of course, as time went on, I think I forget who he was in Greece. Fellow reasoned that our gods can't be like humans. Hmm? If goats were thinking of God, they'd think of him like a goat. If horses were thinking of of God, they think of him would be like a horse. Gods are gods. They're completely otherworldly, and not subject to the human shortcomings, the weakness of humanity, the falling as we do in love, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of a beginning pre-Christianity of divorcing the the earthly realm from the heavenly realm, and by and this picked up speed with Christianity and then the scientific revolution. So and it was thought, of course, that anthropomorphism was anthropocentric. It was like a human-centric perspective, and that was not desirable. The interesting fact, of course, ironically, is that it's just the opposite. But anthropomorphism really properly understood, if you will, does away with human centrism, anthropocentrism. So the idea, of course, is that as time went on, humans were thought to be distinguished from the natural world, right? This is, huge problem, the beginning of the environmental crisis that we're all experiencing now. And so to posit even in an imaginary way that rivers had feelings, animals had feelings. I mean, even today, it's just like this is the beginning of animal studies, if you will, as an academic pursuit, and it's not very well funded. But just see how anybody here have an animal, a pet, a horse, a dog, right? A cat. If you live with animals, then they have feelings. Just live with them, right? And you don't think about it. You just live with them, and then you relate with them, right? So in modern society, of course, we just think about the world. We don't try to relate to it. We try to think about it, and so you can't think. You're not supposed to think that animals, so to speak, of plants or mountains, we're at the very bottom of the whole thing. Stones have feelings. I've often said, of course, stones don't think their thoughts, but that is a way of saying that the difference between the subjective and the objective world is not as the line is not as sharp, if you will. And when we look at it from the point of view of Eastern philosophy and Hinduism in particular, with all of the schools of, well, most of, I should say, let's say the school of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a school of non-dualism, Advaigyan Tattva, right? So Maya Shakti, the material world, the objective world, and the spark of consciousness that we are, the objective world, the subjective world, these are two features of the absolute, two aspects, two Shaktis, right? So anyway, the divide it doesn't, when we look very closely, it really doesn't exist. Maya Shakti can turn into Swarup Shakti. We see it in Gopakumar, for example, Dhruva Maharaj. These are examples, extraordinary examples. So So over time, of course, this now, as there's a famous saying, what is it, like, back to the future. So we have to go back. Future lies in the past and in the present, where in a little village in about 90 miles from New Delhi, worship of this mountain, Govardhana, has been going on for centuries. And little stones from the mountain, as I say, are in every house, and people worship him for with different ideas in mind, but they love him, and they get practical results also. This again would be thought in most circles today as to be the lowest end of idiocy and idol worship and so forth. But it's a very deep theological and philosophical idea. And the fact is that nowadays there's a current in in modern society of pushing back against this anthropomorphism and the idea that it's a great sin, and it's beginning to be looked at more as, if we are part of nature, and there's good reasoning, coming in that direction, even from a Darwinian point of view. You could obviously make that claim. Then why would it be so odd to to think that the other species have feelings and so forth, and this could be the way that we could relate to them and plumb the depths of the subjective reality from a panpsychic, for example, point of view. Consciousness is moving the whole affair, but it's appearing in different forms and shapes and so forth. If we posit that they have feelings, other species, and we deal with them as such, then we might be able to, like I've said before, if you love someone, they'll tell you all their secrets, right? So this is Varnashram, is a way of looking at the world, relating with the world with love and care and so forth. And if someone has feeling, if a tree has feelings and you know it, if the mountain has feelings, then you're going to relate to them because you have feelings. And with regard to your feelings, well, you're going to say they wouldn't like to feel that either, and so forth. This is a very friendly and a beautiful way of dealing with the natural world. And the result of that, of course, in Varnashram, is where you worship the rivers and you posit the personality to the river, to the mountains, and so forth. It's a very beautiful and magical perspective. And the whole magic, of course, has been taken out of modern society. And so humans are in this kind of anxiety, angst. We're separated from the reality that we're actually part of the whole affair, right? So there is a stream of thought amongst educated people today that maybe we went about this, we're going in the wrong direction. And maybe by just looking at the natural world as if it has feelings, we can relate to it and then learn about it in ways that we could never by sitting distance from it with our heads trying to think about it, what it is, what it means, and does it have anything to say to us, teach us, and so forth. So I just want to preface our talk a little bit with some thoughts along these lines, because we're not as crazy as some people might think, and probably used to put it in those kind of terms. He said, do you think that after reading 50 books that we're just worshiping a stone, a dead thing, as you would think of a stone? No. And of course, as I say, the lines between the objective and the subjective world within a school of non-dualism, of which there are different sorts. Of course, ours is a Chintya Bheda, a form of non-dualism. Other schools of Vaishnavism, a number of them are also non-dualist. There's only one that's not. Vishishtadvaita, that's a non-dual school, qualified non-dualism, except for Madhva Dvaitan. He has a reason for arguing directly in that regards against Shankar's kind of radical non-dualism, non-theistic, if you will, non-dualism. So the lines are not. There's a much more gray. Matter is much more mind-like stuff then we would think it to be hard and so on, right? So, and it goes so far, of course, from our perspective, to say that we're, to put it in modern theistic terms, panentheists. That we see that the world is God, and God is in the world, and the world is in God, and God's outside of the world at the same time. The world in God, a little different than pantheism. World is God. No, world in God. So the world is in Jagadavyakta Murti. The world is inside of him, and he's outside of it at the same time. So therefore, what to speak of worshiping a stone from Govardhana, from the Dham, the abode of Krishna on earth, you can worship any stone, this idea in mind, and become fully Krishna conscious. Because the implication is that God is in everything, right? Hiranyakasipu, he thought he could not see God anywhere. Prahlad said, there is nowhere that I cannot see God. This is the opposite. And he was challenged, his son Prahlad, by his father Hiranyakasipu, can you see him in a stone? And he did, of course. And the father broke the stone, and out came Bhagavan Narasingha, Sringa Bhagavan ki jai, Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. When Gopal Bhatta Goswami was worshipping another sacred stone amongst the Hindus, the Shaligram, right, in Vrindavan, he had the desire to dress and decorate the stone like others were dressing and decorating the deities of Krishna. But the stone, of course, doesn't have any hands or legs and so forth. And he was thinking of this on Nishinga Chaturdasi, the birthday, the appearance day of Nishinga, who came out of the pillar, right? He was thinking how fortunate Prahlad was that Bhagavan appeared personally to him in this way. And when he woke in the morning, he had the shilas in a straw basket, and he saw that it was the top was displaced. He thought maybe a snake had gotten in there, so he was a little careful. He opened it up, but what he found was that one of the shilas, this little round stone, had manifest into about this big of a deity, the Ramanji ki jai. So he had his deity. So such is the power of bhakti, right? Turned a stone into a deity. That deity is a self-manifest deity. He's been worshipped for hundreds and hundreds of years. One of the most prominent temples in Vrindavan. So from that, we're okay. We're rational. We're rational. Okay? And we've got a history of examples to demonstrate our rationality and a wealth of philosophy and theology to support our simple and beautiful practices. One of which, again, we're celebrating today, the worship of Govardhana. And I wanted to go into the discussion a little bit, as I mentioned, through Gaur Leela, which is appropriate because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, is Krishna in the form of a devotee of himself, and he is Mahabhadanaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate. He's Mahabhadanaya, this is his guna, his quality. He's most magnanimous. Most magnanimous. Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj used to like to say that the full measure of magnanimity occurs when you give the highest thing to the lowest persons, the most unqualified. If you give a high thing to a highly qualified person, well, you don't get the full measure of magnanimity. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing. He was giving prema. Prema is such a special subject, and dhan, prema dhan, the gift of Goloka. It's a secret place. How secret is that place? How precious is that gift? That the overtly spiritual realm of Vaikuntha, said Hoksaja, it's overtly transcendental. God has 4 arms there, for example, right? It's opulent and so forth. They don't know about this place. And now you know something about it. What that's very, this is the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very, very extraordinary. Golokair Premodhan Harinam Sankirtan. And not only did he make it available, but the reason we know about it, we're touched by it, because the means by which he made it available is loudly broadcasting it everywhere, if you will, like with a megaphone through Nam Sankirtan, broadcasting, singing, chanting the name of God anywhere, anytime, any place, to which the practice of there are no rules attached. Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shakti Tatarpita Niyamita Smaranena Kala. Not only is it powerful, but the name of God contains has all the power, the Shakti, Namakari Bahuda, many names, and they all have the Shakti of Bhagavan. Names like Yashodananda, Radhanath, Gopal Krishna, these are primary names, is what Mahaprabhu was talking about, not names like Paramatma, Brahman, Creator, Yahweh, so forth. These are all other names of God. These are secondary names of God that are God in relation to the world. The names Mahaprabhu was talking about in singing, for example, in the Hare Krishna mantra and other such names, are names from this secret realm, where he's named, if you will, in relation to the love that corresponds with him, who is the perfect object of love, in that he affords the opportunity to love in his form, the absolute, with the kind of intensity that you love your lover or your friend or your son, which exceeds the kind of love that you express for God, for example, on Sunday in church. I know when I was a boy, Catholic boy, in church, going to church on Sunday, I would sometimes look and see what girls were in the pews. So it wasn't as powerful, if you will, the agape as the eros, right? So if you can have that kind of intensity, eros, if you will, for God, it's like, how is that possible? Well, this is the secret, right, of Chaitanya's tradition. That there's such a realm and such a form of the Godhead, and from a feeling point of view, an emotional point of view, therefore, from a point of view of reciprocal dealings in love, we come to the conclusion, this must be the fountainhead. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Svaya, a divinity. Must be. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahabodhanaya, most magnanimous, he is giving this news. I should say he's simply chanting and dancing practically. And a few couple people, Rup Sanatan, he told them a few things. And then they wrote volumes of books and engaged their followers, Jiva, Raghunathas, and so on and so forth, over the centuries. So many texts and so forth to speak about this. Not enough can be said about it. Nature of this idea, of course, is beyond thought, beyond word. Therefore, there's not enough that can be said about it, not enough that can be thought about it. And those kind of thoughts and talks, words about that have the power, then, that ideal, the power to transform our lives, right? So Mahabodhanaya, anyway, he's most magnanimous. Krishna Prema Pradayat, this is his guna, his quality. His lila is Krishna Prema Pradayat. So he gives Krishna Prema. Namo Mahabodhanaya Krishna Prema Pradaya, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya. His name is Nam. So Nam, Guna, Lila, Rupa. Namne Gora Twise. In a golden form. So this verse contains all these features, which by chanting the name of Krishna, gradually you will become acquainted within your heart, with the form of Krishna, the name of Krishna, the qualities of Krishna, the Leela of Krishna, successively. All in the name. Now you see the form of Krishna, but you see now with a particular eye, or the eye of the artist who crafts the deity or paints the picture and so forth, who tries to do justice to that, right? Meanwhile, Rupa Goswami is writing a whole book about his toenails. I mean, what can what can we say about that beatific vision, if you will? And if the vision is one that moves and has qualities, and it should. What is Leela? This is a very beautiful subject, and there's a very nice um, explanation, if you will, by famous Sridhar Swami of ancient times, famous commentator on the Bhagavatam. He says that Leela is the play of consciousness transformed into a drama. The play of consciousness. That's a very elevated explanation of consciousness. The typical explanations of consciousness today, at best, are that it's somewhere in the brain, right? That's a pretty narrow and flat land perspective, if you will. If we go from there to those who object to this reductive materialism for good reason, they say that the consciousness is, is the theater of experience, right? In which everything, where everything, it's the most fundamental, more fundamental than time and space. Time and space are within consciousness. So this is the direction that philosophy will go in. In time, it's starting to go in that direction, which is good for us, right? This is of course, the perspective from Vedanta from centuries and centuries ago. But we're talking about the consciousness of consciousness. This is very esoteric. If you take consciousness and you say, what is our definition? We could say, well, consciousness is sat, which means it's real. Real means it's not here today and gone tomorrow. Other things are here today but gone tomorrow, so they're not real. Any more than your thoughts and if you won the lottery in a dream, you wake up and you don't think, well, I did it, I won it. And then you go to the lottery and say, I won it. It was in my dream, and this is the winning number here. You don't think like that, because the dreams are come and go. Thoughts there, that what happens there comes and goes so quickly. In our waking state, things endure a little longer, so we give them more credibility. But from the larger point of view, they're just a flicker in time, right? Who we think we are in terms of our psychophysiological sense of self, what we think is ours, and so forth. You see the big, I live in a lot of time in Northern California in the redwoods. Just have to get a chuckle of how many people have owned the land they live on. It's their home, and so forth. So to the extent that a thing endures, it has credibility, or it's real, is the idea. So we're coming to eternality. So consciousness is real. Everything that appears within time and space appears and disappears. The sun will burn out, right? There's something that's talking about that, that's observing that, considering that, and that won't burn out. So consciousness is real. It's sat. And it could be real, but not. It could be something that's real, that exists, but doesn't know that it exists. But if it knows, it must exist. If it's cognitive, then it must exist also, right? So we say that consciousness is also chit. It's aware. It's conscious. It's not inert. It knows and it's aware. But there could be a knowing existence that wasn't a loving existence. But if there's a loving existence, then it has to know and it has to be also. So from our point of view, consciousness then at its heart is love, and from it, knowing and being derive. There are lesser aspects of it. That's also, of course, why we place we put a garland around that little village, Vrindavan, and that hill, Govardhana. They don't look very big. If you go from the confines of material existence within time and space, which we're constantly trying to overcome and get beyond, as I often say, if we can just go a little bit faster or a little further, these moments are celebrated in human society. You can win the Olympic medal by fraction of a second is going to be celebrated if you can go to the moon or the Mars or somewhere that's never been gone before. So we're living to just to go beyond the perceived boundaries, right? We don't feel that there should be boundaries because from the Vedanta point of view, consciousness in the human form of life is coming to the surface with qualitative question about itself. Why? Why am I? What is the meaning? What is the purpose? Why limitations? Because it doesn't have those limitations. Of course, in order to overcome the limitations that we experience, we try to go uh, uh, invest ourselves further in the outer world, in the objective world. We go from Europe to the Americas on a boat. We go from planet Earth to the moon, to the Mars. How far can you go? I mean, it's just space. How unlimited is that, right? How far can you explore? And I want to tell you, and you know this, of course, as far as you could explore into the deepest regions of space, or as far as you could go into those invisible mathematical, whatever they are, electrons, quarks, and so forth, as deep as you could go, as high as you could go, as far as you could go in the material world, it's all dead end. And it's all very small. And it costs a lot too. Compared to going within into the subjective world, how big is that? How big is the thought compared to a thing that a thought can understand, comprehend? Understand? How big is a thought compared to a thing? I mean, you can't even measure. Right? Right? The best things in life, therefore we say, are not things. Right? Of course, we say they're not thoughts either, but at least we're going internally now, beyond thought. We want to go. Step from the physical reality to explore the mental reality. I mean, you got these hard sciences exploring the objective world, and then they're real sure about themselves in many respects. In the subjective world, there's still a lot of unanswered questions, right? The nature of emotion and so on and so forth. So how deep is the subjective world? We go beyond thought even, right? To the self, the Atma. Just the tip of that is bigger than the whole objective world. With the possibilities. This is a very important point because here we come to the doorway of spirituality, and there we throw out, as Prabhupada would say, impossible, which is a word in a fool's dictionary. We're talking about worshiping a hill because somebody, a cowherd boy, which is not the highest caste in India, if you will, lifted it with his little finger for 7 days. Do you believe that stuff? You believe that? You might now, but you might get older and you might wonder. You might, under the influence of a powerful sadhu, not be able to think too much. And he or she might put ideas into your heart and so forth that cause you to practice in such a way that you get some bliss and some ecstasy and you don't think. Later on, without that association, the mind may rise up again in intelligence, start to question your own bliss. But you have to think, I don't think I should question my own bliss. That's not a good idea. Right? So here's the point, of course. Open the door. If you step into this objective world, what are the possibilities that lie there? They're unlimited. The stories about Krishna lifting the Govardhana hill, and so how can we believe such things? Well, do you believe that there's no meaning to life, there's no purpose, that there's only physical forces? I mean, nobody lives like that. That's a philosophy you can't live by. You can't walk that talk, right? And it's getting old. It's been a few hundred years now. It's just getting old. It's just an aberration. Aberration is just a deviation from the norm of how humans will think. When they get closer to the world, to the natural world, they naturally appreciate there's a magical dimension. The natural world starts to tell you about yourself indirectly, turn you within. So, what possibility lies within the subjective world? as Prabhupada said, impossible is not there in that dictionary, in that realm. And we have a technology or a technique, if you will, science, as Prabhupada called it, to enter there. And the more we get by sincere practice, some experience, then the more of these, the doubting mind will be retired altogether, right? That said, of course, Krishna Lila is, we know about Krishna Lila from the Bhagavatam. You're told that Krishna was a historical person who appeared on earth and then left behind a book about himself. Krishna Swadhamo Bhagate Dharma Jnana Dibisaha Kalo Nasta Rishamesha Purana Kadunoditaha. This is the Prakat Lila, the manifest Lila of Krishna. Samadhina Nusmrutad Vicheshtitam. It said, Narad told Vyasa, you're a very highly qualified mystic. Sit in Samadhi and meditate on the historical Krishna. What are the implications? And then write about it. That is Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what he wrote. That's the Prakat Lila. So you can, it's right there. You can enter into it through the book with good association. You can find things in the book that you didn't know were there, right? So the Prakat Lila is not some, did it happen? It's there in the book, and the book is alive, and you can experience that. Is the point, right? Mahaprabhu said, it's said to be, Gaur Nityananda said to be giving prem, this secret thing, through that book and the person who personifies the book Bhagavatam and the person Bhagavatam. These two together, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Godadai Pushpapanto Chitro Samdo Tamonudo. It will do away with any other desires. It's so bright, the prospect that it offers, so extraordinary, so charming, right? So prem, a very secret thing, and it's being given freely by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Mahabharanaya, very magnanimous he is, right? And Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj used to like to say, first the giver, then the gift. So the gift is Krishna Prem and Krishna Lila, and the giver is Gaur Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we shall try to enter into Krishna Lila with deference to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the giver, right? So the Lila today is the Govardhana Lila, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told us much by his example about this particular Lila. When he entered the sannyas order of life, and he traveled with 4 or 5 associates from Navadvip to Jagannath Puri, along the way, he stopped at the, it's in Orissa, so closer down to Jagannath Puri, near the end of his journey. He stopped in a temple in Raimuna. I've been there. It's a temple is the deity's name, Chirchor Gopinath, the lover of the gopis, Krishna, who stole sweet rice. He's a thief. And so Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Dev, had heard a story about this deity from his guru, Ishwar Puri, which was a story about Ishwar Puri's guru, Madhavendra Puri. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the opportunity to stay up at the night after honoring the sweet rice, prasadam, and telling the devotees the story that he heard from Ishwar Puri about Madhavendra Puri, his Param Guru, right? Madhavendra Puri was residing in Vrindavan. This is how Chaitanya Charitamrita introduces us to Giriraj Govardhana, the mountain person, personified mountain in Braj. He was living there, and one day, sitting under a tree, chanting Krishna Nam, a young cowherd boy who takes care of cows, came and said, what are you doing here? And aren't you hungry? I've been watching you for a few days now, and you just sit here chanting all the time. And I see that you're fasting. And he said, some people, they grow food. and provide, and other people, they only acquire food by begging. Madhukari, they chant and then they go with the begging bowl, and whatever they get, they accept, and that's their meal. He said. And if anybody in this village doesn't do either of those two, and therefore goes without, he said, I provide for them. Yogachamam Bhamyaham. This is not a fake story. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes this statement, Yogachamam Bhamyaham. And when Jayadev Goswami, who wrote the Gita Govinda, was a householder, and he was writing some poetry and theology, and he thought of this verse of the Gita, and he thought, Krishna says that I carry what my devotees lack, and I preserve what they have. Yogachamam Vahamyaham. And he thought, Krishna's not going to do that personally. So he crossed out the word Vahami and he wrote Karoti. I get it done. For my devotees who are wholly dedicated to me, their thoughts are only on me, so they can't even think about Nidrahara Vihara Kari Vitito Sankhya Pubhaka Namagana Tipi, like Rup Sanatan. They were chanting and so absorbed in their chanting that they forgot to eat. They forgot to sleep. They had no fear for defending themselves. Nidra Hari Bahara Kari Vitito Sankhya Pubhaka Namagana Tipi has this power. Jayadev thought, well, Krishna gets it done. I mean, he sees that they get fed. I mean, Karoti. He doesn't personally carry what they lack and bring it to them, right? That's not possible. So he crossed out the word, and then he wandered outside for a walk to think about it all, right? And his wife was waiting for him to come back because he was also supposed to beg in the market and bring some fruits and vegetables for cooking. And so he didn't come back for a while, but this young boy came with a bag full of vegetables, very beautiful boy. And Jayadev's wife said, where you've come from? He said, oh, you're your husband. I met him in the market, and I had a little scuffle with him. And he punched me, actually. See here? My head scratched. See that? She said, oh, that's so, how could he do that? Such a beautiful boy. He said, it's all right, we made up, and I brought some vegetables for you to cook. So then he disappeared, he left, and she cooked. Jayadev came home, and wife said, oh, you're late, sit down and eat. He said, how did you cook? I didn't bring back any vegetables. She said, that boy and why did you hit him? He didn't tell me the whole story. He said he didn't know what, and then he was really bewildered. So he said, I'm not going to sit down. So he went and sat down at his desk where he had been writing, and the word Karoti was crossed off, and Bahami was written back in. The boy had gone in and changed it back. I get it done. I do it. I bring the vegetables myself. This is Krishna. So he told this boy, this cowherd boy, Gopal, he told Madhavendra Puri, and if people either get their food here by cultivating it, agrarian-based society, or they beg, or those who don't do that, I bring them. I provide for them. He gave them some milk. Right? So he took the milk, and then the boy left, and then he fell asleep in a dream. In the dream, he saw Krishna. And Krishna said to him, I brought you that milk, but actually my murti, my archer vigraha, my form in stone is hidden in the bushes. And it's been here for a long time, and it's hot here. I'd like you to, this is where I am, find me, bring me out, make a temple for me. And then he realized that the boy had come, it was Krishna providing for him. Imagine how he felt. I tell you how he felt. When he realized that Krishna had personally come to him, and then appeared to him in a dream, he was able to rouse the whole village to find the deity somewhere in the forest, in the brush. Now imagine some guy, these mystics, they're few and far between, right? And they're outside of the society, and they don't conform to the societal norms. I mean, he didn't even, pursue eating. It's weird, right? They think, well, we worship them, we regard them, but they're not like part of the world practically. So this guy who's not even part of the world wants to get them to work now, to give up their jobs and their time and energy to chase this, dream, this dream of this vagabond, renunciate. Okay, he's saintly, but I mean, we can't really even understand what they say all the time anyway, So, I mean, you should be religious and everything, but not crazy, right? So, but he got that. This is how it affected him. He was able to. It was a testament in his persona to the reality of his experience. It overflowed to all the people. So they just dropped everything and scoured the brush to find the deity. And there they found the deity who had been hidden during the time of Muslim occupation when the Hindus were invaded by the Muslims. They took the deity from the temple because the Muslims were breaking temples. They were very much against idol worship as they thought of it. This, of course, we don't call it idol worship. Idol means like it's your own idea. This is not our own idea, but this is coming from the sacred texts and so on and so forth. And it's a whole way to given there how to worship, and we get practical results, right? If you apply yourself, you have to be careful about that. Because if you get the result and he starts talking to you, well, then you're not going to have time to do anything else. Your life, in a good way, will be over, changed forever, right? So he got the whole village, and then they found the deity, and they put him on stone, and they put a stone behind him, and then they cooked all day long, like you've cooked all day long here. This is the beginning, Nanukut, this kind of festival, right? You go to your restaurant, cooked a big feast, and offered it to the hill, and they remembered, of course, the pastime. This is in Gorli, that is the Govardhana Lila, when Krishna engaged all the people of Braj in worshiping the hill, and then showed himself to be non-different from the hill, right? Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, he told this story, and later he himself came to Vrindavan to have the darshan of Vrindavan and the deities there and so forth. At that time, Vrindavan, it was several thousand years since the Krishna Lila, and the different places of Krishna's Lila were relatively unknown. He discovered some of them, identified Govardhan Hill, Radhakund, Shamkund, and so forth. And later, he commissioned Rup Sanatan to excavate all the places of Krishna's Leelas, and they were so enthused spiritually by that they got the patronage of kings and queens, and so all the ghats and temples that you see there today were all built, and largely at that time was the power of their saintliness. They could engage the world, if you will. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan, and when he got there, he bathed in the Jamuna and worshipped Haridev. Haridev is the deity at the base of Govardhan Hill. And whoever wants to circumambulate the hill, which is, I don't know, what is it, 12 miles or something around, it's a long walk, first go to Haridev and worship Haridev. So he worshipped Govardhan Hill, and while worshiping the hill, circumambulating the hill, he cited a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the verse we want to speak from. After that, slight introduction. And now this is a verse from the 21st chapter of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. This is coming after the Vatsalya Ras center of the chapters surrounding the Damodar Leela, which is relative to Kartik, and you'll sing the Damodar Astakam tonight, right? Chapters 8, 9, 10. This is a very powerful Vatsalya center to the Bhagavatam. It's written in such a way as to draw out those feelings from those persons who have that kind of spiritual destiny. This is what the Bhagavatam is looking for, those kind of readers. Right? And then you enter into you come in the 11th chapter involves moving from Vrindavan, from Mahaban to Vrindavan across the Jamuna after the felling of the Arjun trees, right? That time, by the last third of the 11th chapter, Krishna's become a cowherder. They've arrived in Vrindavan, floated across the Jamuna and so forth. At that point, this is the beginning of the Sakirasa center of the Bhagavatam. At this time, for example, Krishna slays or liberates Vatsasura and then Bakasura. What's the difference between the liberation of Vatsasura, Bakasura, and all of the other henchmen of Kamsa afterwards, which became almost a daily affair in the Prakat Leela, and Krishna's liberating of Putana, Trinavarta, Shakatasura, so forth, the twin Arjun trees. The difference is significant. The difference is, from an aesthetic point of view, the difference is that prior to the liberation of Vatsasura, Bakasura, Krishna was in his Kumar Leela, beginning in the middle of his, means childhood Leela. The center of his love is his parents at this time. And Krishna liberating Putana, Trinavarta, and so forth, it was not clear that he heroically slayed them, saved the people from them, and he was just suckling the breast of Putana, right? Somehow or other, she was slain. Since the Trinavarta, the little tornado picked him up, and somehow he was saved, right? Why is this? Because the heroism of Krishna that we see when he slays Bakasura and Agasura and so on and so forth, this is an udipana for Sakirasa. It's a catalyst to bring out to cause the Sakirasa, the Sthayi Bhav, to swell up, right? In combination with other bhavs to be reach the height of rasa, Sakirasa in this case, fraternal love. But that kind of heroism, that's not an udipana for Vatsalya Bhav. You understand? So the demons were slain in the childhood Leela of Krishna in a way that it wasn't clear that he slayed them. And on the basis of that, they thought, it's a little dangerous over here at Mahavan. Let's go across the Jamuna. There's Govardhana Hill. That will protect us. The mountain will protect us and provide grasses for our cows. That will protect us because that's our livelihood, the cows and so forth. So right, when Krishna then becomes a calf herder at this time, then he shows his friends, the kind of heroism that the parents don't relate to, and that the girls, their sisters, those boys, hearing about, they believe it and they think, yeah, he's our Prince Charming. And the parents think, well, we'll take that with a grain of salt. It's just our son, right? So this is the beginning of day after day after day of Krishna showing his heroics, which is so stimulating, if you will, for Sakirasa. But anyway, then Sakirasa goes through the Brahma Vimohan Leela, those 3 chapters, 40, 50, up to the slaying of Pralamba, 18th chapter, 19th chapter, a short chapter included the second forest fire. Krishna swallows, extinguishes, and so then we go into the 20th chapter, which is a beautiful chapter that starts to introduce the monsoon season and the autumn season and their virtues, right? Beautiful, poetic, allegorical description of autumn, really, rainy season and autumn. And then we come into the 21st chapter. This verse is from the 21st chapter. And now we're moving towards the Madhurya Rasa center of the Bhagavatam. Krishna's fully into his entering into his Kishore Leela here. His Kishore sensibilities, his adolescent sensibilities, romantic sensibilities, they start to manifest within his Poganda, within his boyhood. He's an early bloomer, if you will. So autumn, of course, is a beautiful time, and there are 5 seasons in India and Braj. You have a pre-winter, a winter, a spring, a summer, a rainy season. Did I say 6? And an autumn, right? So this is the autumn. And autumn, of course, is a harvest season. It's very auspicious. It's Diwali Sukham, happy Diwali, happy New Year. This is the New Year for Hindus, right? Today. Supposed to give out sweets. So I'll have to do that later on. So a very, very beautiful time. Of course, they lived very much in harmony with nature, agrarian-based culture. Seasons, ritu means season, derives from the word rita, which means the right time. Right time means there's a right time to do things according to the quality of the time, the astrological calculation, and how to interact with nature, to speak with nature through symbols and rituals, rites, and so on and so forth, to communicate with nature at the right time. The whole idea here, of course, is that the world is has meaning, it has purpose. There's a dharma, it's a teleological, reality, right? So they're living according to this, and of course in Vrindavan, then this is the natural world in general, but in Vrindavan this is a special. This is the Krishna's own abode. So all the seasons are present, but under the auspices and the guidance of Vrindadevi, then any season can appear, and the best of any season can appear in any season. You can find a tree with leaves, with no leaves on a branch, a little further on the branch, some leaves, a little further blossom, a little further a flower, a little further a fruit, a green one, a little further a ripe one, all on one branch, for example, right? The cows eat the grass and it immediately grows back. so it's a magical place, right? And here in this chapter, this is the first Leela described really in the autumn season, and it's also referred to as the Venu Gita. Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, a beautiful commentary based on different, of course, ancient commentaries of Sanatan, principal commentator for Gaudiya Sampradaya, and Jiva Goswami following him, the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary in contemporary times on this Venu Gita. And this is a famous verse from I'll draw off from some of the things he has said as well, referring as he did to Sanatana Goswami primarily and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But it's a verse that's spoken by the gopis, and there are different opinions about that. Here the gopis are gathered together, and it's called Venu Gita. So Venu means the flute. They're talking about the virtues of Krishna's flute, the power of his flute, and his influence upon others, and how others can take advantage of that influence. It's after all, it's considered to be the Priyasaki. What does a Brahma Samhita say? What is it? Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatarava Brumabhuvis Chintamani Kanamayi Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Api Vamsi Priyasaki. Vamsi Priyasaki. Verses saying, oh, this Vrindavan is very beautiful. It's all of the walking is dancing, all of the talking is singing, trying to help us through poetry expand our possibilities, right? Jiva Goswami said, what must be the dancing then? What must be the singing? Understand? If the talking is singing, if the walking is dancing, what must be the walk? What must be the dancing? What must be the singing? Oh, he writes very beautifully about this in Gopal Champu. His mind is just racing. In Brahma Samhita, Jiva Goswami describes, that's a verse from Brahma Samhita that I cited earlier, but there he describes the reality of this place. Kind of a theological explanation. But in Gopal Champu, he expresses his desire to enter into it. Very, very compelling at the onset of the text. Oh, and I want to go there. And then amongst the cow sheds and herd cows and so forth and so on. Very, very compelling, very beautiful. So Priyasaki means that the flute is very dear because when he plays the flute, then others know where he is, they can come. But the problem here for the gopis is they can't come when he plays the flute. So I'll cite the verse, right? Hantayam adir abala haridas varju yad Rama Krishna charana sparsha pramodha manam tanoti sahago ganayos tayorjat pani yasuva tuyavasam kandala kanda mulai. Hantayam. Hantayam is a hunt means, oh my God. It means something like that. It's a call out of joy, and it could be also out of concern. Oh my God. something like that. So they're expressing some kind of astonishment, some joy, some concern, all at the same time, right? Hanta adlir avala hari dasabarjo. They said that what? They're saying that um, just nearby here there is a great hill, Adrir, Haridasavarjo. We call him Haridas. They don't mention the name of Govardhan. It's obvious that that's who they're talking about, but there's some respect. They don't mention his name. It's a Hindu custom, and they speak about his virtues, right? And now, what's happening here, in one sense, is that they are amongst themselves, speaking amongst themselves, and they're speaking about the virtues of everyone else. This is their bhav. Everyone else is a better devotee than themselves. Because when Krishna does this, oh, the cows come when he plays for them, and the rivers dance, right? Or the rivers freeze up, and the mountains melt, stones melt, and so on. And so everybody responds. We cannot respond. We have to check ourselves, because if we respond, then it'll be known that we have a secret love for him, which is not part of the village norms and morals, so forth, right? They have all been betrothed to someone else, because although every elder wanted all the gopis to marry Krishna, his astrological chart said he's going to be gone. The better part of his life, he won't be here. So we have to marry them to somebody else. They have to be married. They all agree they should marry Krishna, but this is the problem. So this is, of course, makes possible the parakia. So their parakia is amor has to be concealed. They can't respond in the way everyone else does. And of course, it also tells us that in bhava, in prem, then one sees others, the virtues of everyone else, and finds only the fault in themselves. We used to have this problem in ISKCON, we call it the pure devotee disease, right? This one fellow thought, only I'm a devotee, everyone else, finding fault in everyone else. They cannot find fault in anyone, in the inanimate things. Govardhan would appear to be inanimate, just a hill, is more virtuous than us. In fact, they're saying here, he's Haridasvar, the best of the servants of Krishna. So, and Raghunath Das Goswami has said that this verse is spoken by Radha. This first Mahaprabhu is singing. Of course, he's trying to enter into the spirit of Radharani's bhav and experience himself from that vantage point. So she's having what we call like a sporty, an internal vision is coming to her, hearing the flute, and she thinks, and what happens when the flute's playing and Krishna and his friends and Ram, they enter into Govardhan Hill. So she's experiencing it and relating it to the other friends, for other Sakis. Hantaya Madhir Abala Haridasa Bharjo. And she says, Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparsha Pramodha. When Ram and Krishna, they touch the hill, she says, this hill is the best of the servants of Krishna. Now she's going to give some reasoning why he's the best, why this mountain is the best devotee, the best dasya. I think it was Sanatana Goswami said there are two other places in the Bhagavatam where this term Haridas is used in relation to Yudhisthira and in relation to Uddhava. Yudhisthira, when he arranged the Rajasuya sacrifice, which is a big event in which Krishna was designated as the most worshipable person. So many people came and assembled. The point of this, if you look at the text carefully in the commentaries, you see that they came assembled not so much to see Krishna, but to see the servitude of Yudhisthira, who is now the emperor of the whole of Bharat, right? He was the emperor of the whole of Bharat, and he made himself a das, a servant, pari. The measure of his devotion. And Krishna would come and stay in his house, live with him, right? His constitution is it's a form of Sankul Bhav. It means that he has Sakya Bhav bundled together with Dasya and Vatsalya, something like Balaram. So in this instance, he's showing his Dasya, and it's very, very powerful, right? Uddhava, Uddhava takes it to another level. Uddhava is a Dasya, but his Dasya also Sankul Bhav, but his Dasya is mixed with Sakya. And when Krishna chooses him first to bring a message to the Brajvasis that I'll return, I'll be back. Don't worry, I'm thinking about you. I'll come back soon. This is when his Sakyabhav comes forward, and he experiences pranay, and he functions almost like a Narmasaka in Braj. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is characterized in this way. It means that he could play a significant role in the romantic life of Radha and Krishna, pacifying the gopis, delivering message to them, and so forth, and then learning from them the virtues of Vrindavan, the nature of the love, and so forth. So after he gave the message, he wandered it for a couple of months, singing a couple of poems. Shruti Bhigyam, this place is beyond the Shruti, beyond the Upanishads. This place, if only I could take birth here and have the intensity in my Dasya Bhav that the gopis have in their Madhurya Bhav for Krishna. So these are big people. These are big devotees. And they're in human form also. So that means that they have the full capacity in human form to taste those rasas. But she, Radhika in this case here, is saying that better than all of them, this is Mr. Govardhana himself. He is Haridas Bharja. Bharja means the best. He's the best of the servants of Hari. And then she now goes on to say why. Because when Ram and Krishna and their friends come with their cows, all of them, I'm reminded for a moment because I mentioned Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, when he first came to America on tour, at that time I had an ashram in Oregon, and I was the only ashram in North America to invite him to come. And he had a small group, so I invited him to come, and I talked to some of the devotees. I said, come, bring five devotees. Like that. They said, okay. Maharaj came with like 35 devotees. So we had to expand our capacity to facilitate. And of course, we did that very, very, very nicely. So Krishna comes with Ram. That's big enough, but with all the friends and all the cows. I mean, this is a lot of cows. every friend. I mean, Nanda Maharaj had 900,000 cows. Krishna's taking care of all of them, right? Each cowherd boy has his own set of cows and so forth. So a big group to host, if you will. And Govardhana has no problem with that. No problem. Come, he says, sit on my lap. Right? So she says here that, well, why is he the best? Because when Krishna and Balaram touch their feet on him, then his grass starts to sway and rise up. She starts to describe the ecstatic symptoms that she sees on Govardhana. Govardhana is experiencing sattvika bhavas. This means this is a real devotee. Real devotee. We are apprentices only. Sadhakas means apprentice. Therefore, it said that if you chant the holy name but you don't weep and your hairs don't stand on end, then something in the way of your chanting. We quoted Mahaprabhu's verse, Nam Nama Kari Bahudani Dasabhashakti Tatarapita Niyamita Smaranina Kala. The names are very powerful. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting them. But he said, I have no attraction for them. This contrast is huge. So the power of the name I've talked about, all of this Srup Shakti is in the name Radhanath, Yashodanandan. These are not names of God in relation to the world, but in relation to his abode that is not even known about in Vaikuntha, special place, Sweta Dvipa. It's like if a guy had an island somehow in the Pacific, nobody could go there, something like that. Special place, right? And all the power of that place. What is the power of that place? It's keeping him up at night, right? In Brahman, which is one face of the absolute, then Brahman is everywhere. So if you're everywhere, you can't move. And he's omniscient, he knows everything. So if you know everything, there's nothing to do, right? But Krishna is Brahman, not only moving, but dancing and singing. So what is making that which can't move because it's everywhere move? What is that power? If something's everywhere, how can you make it move? That is the power of Krishna's Swarup Shakti. So if we move from Brahman to Vaikuntha, in Brahman that Swarup Shakti is not manifest, but still. What's prominent there is eternality and some knowing and some bliss, a little bit. We go from there to Vaikuntha, the Swarup Shakti is manifest to some extent. There's Lakshmi and Narayan. One Lakshmi. Swarup Shakti is present there, right? It looks smaller because you were just everywhere. Right? Now you're going to a place with form and so forth. But it's bigger, right? How is it bigger? The measurement is by feeling. And what is the feeling? Love, affection. Because there's more possibility for affection there because there's an apparent other. Not I am. Oh, not I am. And he's lovable. Lovable. So it's bigger. It's more accommodating, right? But if we go to Vrindavan, what is the difference? Lakshmi Sahasrasata. Sambrahma Seviman. Difference is qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative means there's not only one Lakshmi there. There's Lakshmi Sahasrasata. Hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis, gopis. Fullest expression of Swarup Shakti. And Lakshmi Sahasrasata Sambrahma Sevyamano. And they're endowed with this particular type of serving disposition that Lakshmi doesn't have. Lakshmi heard something about it. That Krishna's got a place. At least on earth. I want to participate. Krishna's the dear Lalita there. That means he's controlled by the gopis. I don't have that luxury with Narayan. And he can be a trip, So a little demanding. I love him. She's always massaging his feet. Lakshmi Devi ki jai. Lakshmi Narayana ki jai. So of course she went to Vrindavan. She sat down, performed penances and austerities with a view to enter the rasa dance. And Krishna came along and said, Lakshmi, what are you doing here? Said, I'm performing penances and austerities. I want to enter the rasa dance. And he said, that's not how you do that. Not by eating roots and things that have fallen from the trees, living austerely and fasting. So what is the way? He said, well, you have to give up your husband, Narayan, marry a gopa, and then give him up. But you didn't even get that far. You have to give up Narayan, give up your husband. That's like undo. Her bhav would never allow that, right? It's an impossible, right? Impossible. She could not do that, right? Such the virtues of Braj. Thousands of them, and the quantity and the quality of their love. So it means that the Swarup Shakti is now fully manifest there. Now, in Vaikuntha, yes, now there's some love, right? And there's some knowledge. You're in touch with the God who's omniscient, who knows everything, right? Now, knowledge is more prominent, chit, than it is in Brahman. And then there's more love too. There's some possibility of love. Now you go to Vrindavan. The love is prominent, right? And as we said earlier, this is the full face of consciousness, where the love is prominent. Then there's existence and there's knowing, but they're secondary. What is the knowing of Vrindavan? They don't know that Krishna is God. That is the supreme knowing, actually. What is the nature of the place? It's not like Vaikuntha. You could miss it, You drive by, you didn't see that place. It's just a little village, right? Along the bank of the Jamuna. Like I've said before, if you love someone, you could live in a cave, right? Or in the hollow of a tree. right? There, the love is prominent, all accommodating. Srup Shakti is fully manifest, right? Therefore, Krishna is moving. It's a 24-hour Leela. It's divided into eight sections, right? He's up all night, right? Just as he just doze off in the bower, time the sun is coming, he has to get back home. As soon as he gets back home, his coward friends are waking him up, right? So this is fully animated absolute, right? Krishna dancing, the dancing God. So how do we get there? So he comes anyway. Krishna coming, right, to Govardhana hill, and Govardhana is accommodating him. And when Krishna touches down, and then he is electrified. He's showing ecstatic symptoms. This is real bhakti. We are apprentices. We do chanting because we're told, we heard, we understand. We get a little taste, something carries us a long way. Then some good arguments, good classes, good reading, and so on and so forth. But real chanting, real devotee, full measure, when bhakti is fully manifest, then this is what she's saying. And therefore she's saying, we want to take shelter of a real devotee. Haridas Bhari. We want to take shelter of a real devotee. This is the way. We cannot find our way to Krishna. Everyone has found their way to Krishna. They hear his flute, they go. We cannot find our way. What will we do? We have to find a real devotee under his or her guidance. Then we surely will attain bhakti. So this is how they refer to him, Haridas, the best of Hari's servants. Because, just with the touch of Krishna, he erupts in ecstatic symptoms. Not only that, but he supplies then, in the midst of his ecstasy, all the things that are necessary for Krishna Lila. We have a system of worship in the morning. Ritual worship. Ritual is the kind of the realm between eternity and the temporal. The realm of ritual. There's a language to it and a way to move in that realm and so forth. We do it properly, we can enter into the eternal. The symbolic representation of Krishna in the form of the deity will speak to you, right? In that form of worship, the puja in the morning, the most sophisticated form of archan includes 64 items that are offered to the deity: a mirror, a song, a fan, dress, flowers, scents, oil, so on and so forth. 64 items. A very elaborate puja, very nice. In his Gopal Champu, Jiva Goswami has taken this verse and shown how Govardhana offers all of these things. The point here, in one sense, is that the ritual worship that you do, if you worship Govardhana, for example, in the morning, yourselves, in your home, that's all going on in Vrindavan in a live form. Artigs being offered, with the eyes of the gopis going round and round, head to toe, looking at Krishna, and the flame in their hearts, right? So the whole these rituals, in other words, through the ritual you enter into the lila, and all that you're doing in the ritual is also present and going on. It's also artik there. It's also the morning puja. Krishna comes to Govardhana, and all 64 items are offered every day in the morning, right? Or throughout the day, right? So she begins to mention them here. She says, "What? Their cows. They come with their cows, their calves, and they come with all kinds of necessities that the host Govardhan provides: water for drinking, soft grass for sitting, caves, especially during the rainy season, get out of the rain or to rest in during the day, fruits, flowers, vegetables, etc., etc., etc. In this way, the hill offers respects to the Lord, being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram. And he appears very blissful. So this is a verse Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cited when he first circumambulated Govardhan Hill. It's an important verse from Bhagavatam. It tells us something about Govardhan Leela. And from there, of course, we enter into the Bhagavatam itself and the Leela, which is, I'm afraid, another night, another talk. So we got as far as the entrance way in Gaur Leela. Are there any questions? Yes.
Said
Yeah. Narayan Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. Yes.
Could you, Maharaj, explain the differences between different places of the spiritual world, and especially the relationship to different rasas? How there is a difference that some particular races are prominent in particular areas of Vrindavan and not in others.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could say a few things for you in that regard, and they should be obvious as I speak about them. It'll be obvious to you, right? So the village itself, right? Well, obviously, then Vatsalya Rasa is prominent there. Hmm? They're the king and the queen, Nanda and Yashoda, running everything. If if Yashoda Mai sees a young coward boy, she'll grab him immediately, pull him on her lap, say, "Where have you been? I've not seen you for a day." Hmm? Hmm? And she knows what is the favorite preparation of every coward boy. So she has someone arrange that. You can't get away until I give you that. Same with the gopis. She knows every gopi. So every gopi, every gopa, every boy and girl, they're like extension of her own family. Hmm? She is the queen of Vatsalya Rasa, right? The fullest measure is brought out in those three chapters of Bhagavatam 8, 9, 10. What is her position? And Nanda Maharaj, and then Rohini, right? So they're predominant there. Of course, you have the uncles and Nanda Maharaj's brothers and so forth. And then you have a similar scene going on in Vishwabhanupur, Vishwabhanu Maharaj, Kirtida, and so forth. So in the villages itself, then this Vatsalya Rasa is prominent. Not that the other rasas aren't going on, but because Vatsalya Rasa is not compatible with Sakya Rasa and Madhurya Rasa, then Krishna and his friends can't entirely be their friends, act like friends in the company of the elders. Their Sakya Rasa would have to contract a little bit in the presence of Vatsalya Rasa. And similarly, the secret romantic life of the adolescents, Radha and Krishna, gopis and Krishna, that also will contract in the presence of Vatsalya Rasa, right? Now, Rupa Goswami used the word enemy. Vatsalya is the enemy. There are rasas that are enemies and friends. It sounds a little strong, but we have to, of course, look at the full picture and understand that without the opposing influence of Vatsalya, there would be no Parakya, right? So it's a composite. This is a beautiful thing about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that the goal, the idea, the window into the apricot lila that's been open for us to enter includes all of these rasas. If you go to like an Embarka Sampradaya, that they're not included. You're only in a kunja with Radha and the gopis. There's no Krishna's friends aren't there. You don't participate. And we like this more. Full picture, right? So now, if you go to the forest, then Vatsalya Rasa is not prominent there, right? In fact, the idea of Krishna going to the forest is affecting it in a negative way, right? Not nourishing it, not causing it to flourish. So Krishna goes into the forest. Of course, some semblance of Vatsalya Rasa goes with him. That's the cows. Semblance, because the rasa is fully experienced in human life. We are going there in human form. You'll have cows. They'll be an extension of your own bhava, of your own swarup, extension of that. Or parents, extension of your own bhav. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, the full face of each of these rasas is experienced in human form. So the cows are like a partial expression of Vatsalya Rasa. They're going with Krishna. But he's going on the plea of being dharmic, righteous, herding cows, which his father can get his head around. And okay, it makes sense. You should do that. I can tolerate your leaving because you're doing taking the family business to another level, right? Convince Mother Yasoda of that and so forth. But of course, he goes on the pretext of herding cows, really to play with his friends. And the cows really hardly need to be taken care of. They're having the best of lives, just being in the forest with Krishna. Right? So Sakiras is very prominent, right? In this place. That they every day these boys go to the forest, and every day they get together and they all make a pact. We're never going home. And every day they go home. But Sakiras pulls on Krishna and they have to follow him. Right? And every day they make a pact. What must be the forest of Vrindavan? How they feel, right? And so Krishna's gone on the pretext of being a herder to play with his friends, which is the pretext for meeting with the gopis. To take it at another level. So this is this real center of Vrindavan for us, because the two main influences in Gaudiya Vaishnavism are Sakiras and Madhurya Ras, Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? And every coward boy's got a sister, and every sister loves Krishna, and Krishna loves every sister. So this is a romantic comedy of adolescence, is what it is. So the forest, right? And in the midday leelas, where some of Krishna's friends who are influenced by Madhurya Rasa, they participate with Krishna and the gopis, Radhakund, Shamkund. These leelas are brought out. The specialty of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. How miraculously in broad daylight Radha and Krishna can meet with the help of their assistants, right? So those are prominent there. And then of course Dasya Rasa, Dasya Rasa will be also prominent in the village. It's also, some Dasyas will also go cow herding, carrying things, bringing them something from home sent by Yashoda and so forth. Dasya Rasa is neutral, so doesn't get in the way. It doesn't cause the Sakya Bhav or Vatsalya Bhav to contract, or Madhurya Bhav. So Radhakund is very special for Madhurya Rasa of the type that is favorable to Radha. So Chandrabali can't go there. So it's a certain type of Madhurya Rasa prominent there. Shamkund also. So some idea. Then of course Govardhana also is part of the forest, right? So they're going herding cows. So those are the four prominent rasas that they help. Of course, outside of that, you're not talking about Mathura and Dwarka, right? You're just talking about Vrindavan. Does that help? Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
The point that you made about, like, in the beginning, how we have like 100% acceptance of everything that we read and hear, and that nothing, there's no question. And then later,
you didn't even know who the president was, right?
Yeah.
At some time.
So, so does that mean that later, our faith can be waning, like we're losing faith by that questioning process?
Well, in the beginning, the faith is weak. So we call it Komal Shraddha. Komal Shraddha means it's tender. It's tender. So this is a stage within bhakti. When the faith is tender, that means it's not as well informed, for example, by the scriptural argument that's captured one's intelligence, and one's tender heart has now been strengthened by the intellect, spiritualized intellect. So like if you want to strengthen a steel, you put it in the fire. Just before it melts, you take it out. So in the beginning, you have faith, and based on the faith, you can fully apply yourself and you get some experience. But then if you have to think about your faith, and if that opportunity presents itself and so forth, well, then you start to look at the philosophy. For the philosophy, you're going to gain some argument to support your faith and so forth. But you're also going to find out that the philosophy has got a hole in it here, a hole in it there, because of course the reality that you're pursuing transcends words and thought. But so then you have to struggle maybe with that, right? Pujapat Sridhar said this, that for the Kanishta Adhikari to become an Madhyama Adhikari, has to exercise and spiritualize the intellect, but he has to be careful. She has to be careful because it could become an atheist at that point. Therefore, it should be done under good guidance. right? Under good guidance. So there's a stage when the faith is tender and without good association, then it could recede. But whatever you have gained in bhakti will nonetheless remain there. But you may not be able to operate because your bhakti will not be animated by faith. Faith is the animating principle. Does that help?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
But one other thing, when you think about good guidance, like sometimes one loses faith in their leader or their guru or many others, and that could be quite devastating. Or we've seen it's devastating if their guru falls down, or they see discrepancies in their gurus and so that could also cause doubts and thinking, wow, if they were so advanced, and if they have problems, what to speak of me, how can I continue in strong faith?
One time Prabhupada answered a question like that. He was asked, how come so many big devotees are falling down? Of course, Prabhupada said, big devotees don't fall down. So another thing is that you speak about a reality that everybody in the room has some acquaintance with on some level, me included. Right? I had faith in so many God brothers who were senior to me, were leading, and so on and so forth. So you might want to look at the landscape, see who stayed on their feet in all of this. That's an intelligent thing to do. Who stayed on their feet in all of this? And then we found out who were the big devotees. They were hiding, but didn't know they were big or something like that. I'm not one of them, but I mean, yeah. But that's an intelligent thing to do. You may, and you also have to gravitate towards fundamental philosophical principles. Okay, so this problem happened, that problem happened. This person was an inspiration for you, and then he did something that was out of character, and he himself left the path. Does that mean now that you're the body? No, that doesn't make any sense, right? So you have to be until it doesn't make any sense. Now I've become my body, and now I should pursue Sanskrit. There's no prospect for that. So you have to look at these kind of things. If they're false gurus, there can only be false gurus if there are real gurus, right? So there must be. So we search it out with our heart and so forth, and we grow, and that's how you got involved in the first place. You had to meet Prabhupada, you had to figure out what he was saying. His accent, you got to understand that, and is this for real? These guys, you had to go through that. So if you have to go through that on another level, you have to reflect back and say, I already did this once, so I'll be better at it the second time. So there are going to be hurdles, there are going to be obstacles, and so forth. That's a given. But if you can get grounded in, of course, you get grounded in little experience that you do have. When your hair is standing on end and you weep, and well, okay, I'm not going to argue, like I said earlier, against your own bliss. But if you don't have much bliss, then it's maybe a little harder. But anyway, so there's some thoughts, right? Big devotees, they don't fall down, and there are big devotees, right? But I experienced the same thing, so I not alone in that. Yeah.
Govardhana is a big devotee.
He's a big devotee. He's big in every way. Right? All right. So, what did you make an offering? Okay. Anything else? All right. Nice to be with you. Okay. Yes. One more question.
I just have a curiosity question. When Yudhishthira was the emperor of Bharat, how was that like the whole world, or how big was Bharat?
Bharat is not thought to include Europe, the Americas, and so forth, but a large part of Asia, probably extending into Pakistan, the Himalayas, the whole Himalayas, to Cambodia, Thailand. You can find remnants of that, old temples and so forth in those places, Vietnam and so forth. That is Bard. So, and it's a Varsha. It's called a Varsha, Bard Varsha. There are other Varshas. So it doesn't include the whole globe, if you will. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Bharat Bhumite Hoila Manusya Janmadar Janma Sartak Kori Parupakar. He said that Bharat Bhumite Manusya Janma, who has Manusya Janma, human birth in Bharat. Bharat Bhumite Hoila Manusya Janmadar Janma Sartak Kori Parupakar. They should do Parupakar. Upakar means to befriend, to help other people, to be kind to others, to so forth. And Para Upakar means the work of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to give the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of Krishna Bhakti everywhere. So the people of Bharat were told, if you will, were given this mandate by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. People born in Bharat, this is what they should do. And Prabhupada, he did that, right? He did that. But at a certain point, he got a little disappointed with the response of the others in Bharat, and he said, now this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mandate has been transferred to the Americas and Europe. Whoever's born in America, in Europe, and in touch with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, they should do Parupakar. That means their life is auspicious. Their life has been made auspicious. Therefore, they should do auspicious thing, good things for others, something like that. Bharat Bhumi ki jai. All right, stop there. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam bhavani vaishnavi namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai. Lord Premanand.